Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be taking a look at the new Diatone GT-M 2.506. So this is their 2.5 inch version for the GT-M series. So previously on the channel I reviewed the GT-M3 and also the GT-M2.5. This is actually the 1.9 inch version, and the only thing that is changing now is the arms on the frames, so the unibody underneath. So it's smaller on these than on the GT-M3, but everything else is being kept the same. And ignore the cameras on these two here because it's going to be a Runcam Micro as well on the final version. But yes, this cage is the same on all of the models, and so is this stack, which they have been refining over the last few months, and it works really well now. So we have got 25 amp BL Heli S 4-in-1 ESCs that have a built-in current meter, so it's no longer on the battery cable. By the way, on Banggood it'll say 20 amp, but they're called the F25, and I was told they're 25 amp, so maybe it's a 20 amp with a 25 amp burst. But yeah, got lots of capacitors on this ESC board. Then we've got the F4 flight controller with their custom setup, custom PIDs, custom rates, absolutely everything. So I've left it as stock as I can. I put my own rates in there, but the setup on this one is actually pretty good. I think I just stuck angle mode in there because it just had arming on there, and it didn't have lost model alarm, and it didn't have beacon because there's no buzzer actually connected here, but they do give you a little tiny buzzer in the package, and that fits nicely just down there. It just plugs in. I'm not sure why they haven't plugged it in. Maybe they're giving you the option to use D-Shock commands, because that will work. And then above we have got the Unify here, and we've got a capacitor on the back on the 5 volt, and we've also got another capacitor on here as well. And if it works the same as this version, then there was no noise whatsoever, and that is really impressive for a Unify, because you know it's a high output VTX. One thing again though, I don't like that this little linear antenna here is just cable tied on there, because again, if you want to lift this cage up, it's going to rip the little micro UFL off there, and it could potentially damage it. So again, I'd like to see a better solution for that. And again, same as with this one, really, I'm just repeating myself. This silicon mat here, it's not quite thick enough, so these screws here do get in the way, so I would provide a thicker silicon mat. But it did not throw a battery when I flew it, so yeah, it's just going to dig into your battery though, so be careful with that. We've got a battery strap here, and the only thing that has changed is the motors. So we have got Sunny Sky branded motors. They are an 1106 and they are 6,500 kV, so very high in kV. And then we have got the Gemfan 2540 2.5 inch propellers, so you know, fairly low in pitch. So with these high kV motors, this thing is probably going to scream. Now they say it's designed for a 3S battery. You're not given a battery, so I'm using this GMB 550 milliamp 3S. And they say it will work with a 4S, so I'll be using this 650 milliamp 75C 4S. I do think though, with these high kV motors, that might be a little bit too much for this battery, so maybe a higher C 4S battery would be better, because yeah, I think it's going to be drawing quite a few amps on the 4S, and I'm not sure this has the capacity or the C rating to cope with those amps, but I'll have to see. So also in the package we have got a spare cable there, we've got some spare screws, we've got another Velcro strap, we have got a XT30 connector, it's the opposite of this one, maybe for your charger, and we've got some cable ties in there as well. Alrighty, let's check this guy out on 3S. Man, that really got out of the grass quickly. It feels like it's got quite a bit of power, this one, and that'll be those high kV motors. Alrighty, it's really breezy here today, but let's check out the punch. Wow, that is bonkers. Actually took quite a bit of time to come back down. Yeah, I'm not sure again that 4S is needed, and we have fairly low pitch propellers on here, so I dare say that just like the 1.9 inch version or the 205, it's probably just gonna make more noise but actually not be a whole bunch quicker. This thing, it just feels like a rocket. Yeah, I mean, even in this crazy winds that we've got, I don't know if that's going to come through on the camera, but yeah, these trees are really getting blown about. It has got some real performance, this thing. Let me try and keep it in close for you guys though. And for me, because, you know, it is still a tiny model. And if this thing gets away from me, then it's going to be difficult for the orientation. So what can we take away from the line of sight? Well, I'm not hearing oscillations on the punch. Oh man, that wind. Yeah, that's taking some time to come back down. I have got the digital idle at 6% and it was set at 5. So I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference, but maybe it needs to come lower. Of course, you run into the death roll issues if you have it too low. Yeah, moderate when it comes to noise, but you know, it's a high kV motor, so if you're going to be running on high throttle, then I think this is going to be quite a noisy one. But man, Diatone are absolutely killing it with these little models now that they have perfected this little stack that's in here. Have to see if the fact that it's possibly drawing more amps, I would say, than the 1.9 inch version. I would say it's, well, I'd say it was definitely drawing more amps. It'd be interesting to see how that affects video noise and stuff like that. And I'm flicking it back into angle mode. It's difficult to see if we've got any drift because of the wind, but very small inputs to get it to hover. So yeah, seems like we don't have any drift, so that is cool. Okay, so here's some DVR footage, and the starting voltage was correct with this one, so no problems with the scaling. So I went to do a first speed run, and the copter kept pitching violently when I put pitch in. So that was me putting pitch in, but it became really sensitive. And I went and looked at the settings, and the TPA, so throttle PID attenuation, was set at 0.4, and I think that is what was causing it. So I was trying to get a decent speed run. However, I don't usually do speed runs with models that are under 3 inch because the speed trap doesn't pick them up, and I think this was actually going faster than, I think, was that 76 mile per hour? It is a fast machine, this. So I went to do some hesitation maneuvers at lower throttle, and there was no problems at all. The tune seemed pretty nice actually, but then you go up on the throttle and it gets crazy loose. So I think they just need to reduce that And yeah, the speed trap not picking up the true speed there, just too small. Then I ended up actually going further back and pushing the throttle in earlier, and I think it picked up a reading of like 80 mile per hour. We'll see that one in a bit. But yeah, just checking out the tune here, and again, yeah, just a little bit loose. And I think the reason that they have done that, there you go, 83 mile per hour, and I think it is doing that, it's a quick machine. Yeah, I think why they've set the TPA so high is perhaps to put a 4S on there, but again, I think you should just pick a battery and tune towards that rather than trying to make it work with two different batteries. And personally, I would not use a 4S with this model, because I did a 4S flight in a minute and you'll see what happened. So I ended up reducing the TPA to something like 0.20 or something like that, and yeah, it just went absolutely crazy, as you'll see in a minute. But what I will say though, look at this video feed, absolutely crystal clear, and I really like what Diatone are doing. And you can see as well the current meter flashing there. They've got it set at 450 milliamp, so I would change that because it's a little bit annoying, and it actually caused me to ignore my on-screen display, which I shouldn't have done because the battery was getting really low. And yeah, quite a short flight time because I've been doing those speed runs, and yeah, we're about to have a crash as it runs out of battery. Do not do that, that was my fault. So this is with the 4-cell battery, and it started off pretty good, so feels locked in on the low throttle, and I just did a couple of circuits there, and on full throttle this happened. It just went absolutely crazy, and I think that is perhaps where the TPA is needed, because I don't think the flight controller knows what to do here, and it's just absolutely going nuts with those RPM. But I'll tell you why I wouldn't recommend a 4S anyways, because when I landed, the motors were burning my hands. They were getting too hot, and it's blisteringly fast on a 3-cell anyway, so what it needs is a decent tune for the 3S, and stick with the 3S, because it's also drawing 60 amps and above on these bursts, whereas on the 3S I think it was drawing up to 48 amps. So a battery of this capacity, even with a high C rating, is going to struggle to be able to provide enough amps to cope with the 4S anyway. So yeah, I would say leave 4S for the 3-inch models, and I think 3S is the limit for the 2.5-inch prop, just because of the high kV. Maybe if they went lower in kV, but then, you know, if you went lower in kV, then you're really not getting the benefit of 4S either. So yeah, again, I think, you know, it's on the limit. I was actually trying to go up slow on the throttle to see if I could get it to have like a smooth power delivery, but no, I wouldn't recommend a 4S for this model. And the battery was burning hot as well. It was a hot day. And yeah, so I do think this is my favourite 2.5-inch model. There's not actually many compared to all of the other classes. However, I do prefer the 3-inch class. And, you know, if I was to pick a favourite out of these, it would be the GT-M3. It is much faster. But if you don't want to go that fast, because it can be scary, then it's great that we now have got all of these options from Diatone. And, you know, this stack that they are using, it seems to be, you know, a really decent setup. And, you know, flight time, if you don't do these daft speed runs that I was doing, then, you know, you're probably looking at a 3 to 4 minute flight time on these batteries. And yeah, it didn't pick up any of the speed runs on this flight, just because it was just too crazy and I couldn't get to full throttle, so it was pointless anyways. But yeah, needs a decent tune, I think, and it is a really good model, so it should be available soon, so I'll link it in the below. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.